HW, can you please pull up the House Ways and Means site, find the Limit, Save, Grow Act, and take us through it quickly? There's no mention of Social Security. Thanks. Oh, you're talking about like that Kevin McCarthy doesn't want to cut Social Security? Okay. Kevin McCarthy says he wants to fix Social Security and Medicare. He's not only leaving the door open for cuts, but he's signaling. So this is March 6th. But then in January he says Social Security, Medicare cuts are off the table. But in March he said, I want to cut the programs. So the Grow Save Act, Limit, Save, Grow Act. Okay, well, let's look at it. Let's look at it here. House Republicans today passed the Limit, Save, Grow Act to address debt ceiling and implement common sense spending reforms to limit wasteful spending, save taxpayer dollars, and grow the economy. The bill delivers on our public's commitment to America by tackling chronic labor shortage, hurting small businesses while reining in President Biden's wasteful spending that has fueled the inflation crisis and sparked the fastest interest rate hikes in decades. During the debate on the floor, the U.S. House Representatives Ways and Means Chairman Jason Smith highlighted how this bill will help working-class families afford groceries and end the labor shortage, killing Main Street businesses, while rolling back Democrat handouts for wealthy billion-dollar corporations and the Chinese Communist Party. Okay. What's in it? Background. Ends green handouts to China, the wealthy and billion-dollar corporations. Limit, Save, Grow Act protects taxpayers by cutting hundreds of billions of dollars in special interest green energy handouts that are flowing into the pockets of the wealthy, the Chinese Communist Party, and billion-dollar corporations. The cost of green subsidies 3 times original projection. These special interest tax breaks will cost up to 3 times more than what Democrats claimed they would when they sold the Inflation Reduction Act to the American people. The Joint Committee on Taxation, which initially estimated IRA's green subsidies would cost $271 billion. Now project the cost will cost more than double to $570 billion before including the additional cost of electric vehicle subsidies. Other independent analysts tag the price of the IRA's special interest tax breaks at over $1 trillion. Okay, so they want to cut tax subsidies for green vehicles. I'm sure car manufacturers and the makers, the people who are employed making green cars, would really love to hear that. Okay. I noticed that so far in the green subsidies, they don't have the $100 billion a year in subsidies and tax breaks we give to oil companies in there. Interesting. So in 10 years, we give $1 trillion in tax subsidies to oil companies, but they don't mention that in there. So why no cut in tax breaks for oil companies, but cut in tax breaks for companies that make things that don't destroy the environment? Corporate tax breaks flow to billion-dollar corporations. What? Tax breaks go to billion-dollar corporations? Get out. Over 90% of the green electricity tax breaks flow to companies making $1 billion a year in sales. Financial institutions receive 3 times more benefit than any other industry. These tax breaks are a massive transfer of wealth from working-class families to Wall Street and big business. Wow. So you're telling me that big companies make green stuff get tax breaks? No shit. Okay, vice versa. If they're complaining about tax breaks, then roll back the 2018 tax cuts where 90-something% of the tax breaks went to billion-dollar corporations. And you didn't get anything out of it. Like, there's no incentive. If you're going to do a tax break for a company, right, you should get something out of it. Like, hey, company, you do something that helps the environment, we'll give you a tax break. But the 2018 tax cuts were like, hey, you're a billion-dollar company, we don't want you to have to pay taxes. Here's a bunch of money. You got nothing in return. So if you're going to offer tax breaks, why not stipulate a benefit for society out of those tax breaks rather than just giving it to them willy-nilly all over the place and not getting anything out of it? China cashing in on green energy handouts. Chinese companies tied to Chinese Communist Party are using tax credits from the Inflation Reduction Act to enrich themselves. A Ford battery plant in Michigan, electric vehicle plant in Ohio, and a solar assembly plant in Arizona are all being built with the assistance of Chinese companies, including some accused of using forced labor. Okay. Here's the thing. Citizens United in 2010 declared corporations people. And if you incorporate in the United States, you have incorporated a United States citizen. So if the Chinese Communist Party is making wholly owned subsidiaries here in the United States, they're creating U.S. citizens. Because Republicans love the Citizens United decision from 2010. So if they don't want these Chinese companies to get these tax breaks, then repeal Citizens United, ding-dongs. That's all you have to do, right? You don't want them to receive these tax breaks? Then don't allow them to become U.S. citizens by incorporating in the United States. Problem solved. EV tax break is handout to the wealthy. Families making $300,000 can receive a $7,500 tax break to buy a luxury electric car. Well, so can families making $40,000 a year. They can get the exact same tax break. Because the point is to encourage people to buy cars that produce fewer emissions. That's the entire point of the tax break. To get combustion engine cars off the road and get electric cars on the road, spurring more research and development into those electric car companies and making them improve with better battery technologies and things like that over time. So their entire point to pass the debt ceiling is to help the oil companies do more oil. That's it. So that's their plan right here. The background save, limit, save, grow act is to make it so that oil companies can sell more oil. Okay. All right. Adds work requirements to help break cycle of poverty and end chronic labor shortage. Bipartisan 1996 welfare reform worked. After the 1996 bipartisan welfare reform bill added work requirements to temporary assistance for needy families and other public benefit programs, welfare caseloads dropped, families moved into the workforce, and left the cycle of dependency. Ish? I mean, part of the reason that the families that received welfare was because women, single mothers who had kids, needed a way to take care of their kids. And so if you're going to eliminate the welfare for these folks, then figure out how to supplement them with childcare. You want them working? Cool, get them childcare. But if you can't afford childcare and you have to work and not take care of your kids because you're a single mom, then you end up raising a family of kids who have no parental supervision or adult supervision whatsoever. And then you end up with problems in society that result from that. So if you're going to be the party that complains about parents not taking care of their kids, then you're not going to want to create situations where parents can't take care of their kids. So, if you could have family planning, access to contraceptions, abortion, things like that, then you'd reduce the need for welfare on the system, and you would also have fewer children that didn't have an adult around to raise them, teach them things, make sure they're getting hurt and getting in trouble, stuff like that. So yes, they moved more people into work, but they also left more kids unsupervised and feral. Requirements don't exist for most welfare recipients. Yeah. Okay. So in 2021, the vast majority of states had 0% work participation rate requirement for TNF, and 57% of work-eligible individuals reported 0 hours of work even before COVID. Only about 3 million of the roughly 48.5 million able-bodied adults who receive Medicaid, TNF, food stamps, public housing, or child care benefits were subject to any work requirement. Okay, so people who are starving are going to starve. And just because someone is able-bodied doesn't mean they aren't suffering from something else. Depression, anxiety, psychosis, all sorts of things that can make it so you can't necessarily work very well. PTSD. Maybe they're taking care of kids at home, right? It's either go to work or your infant is at home alone all day because you can't afford childcare. So these are pushy stats that don't necessarily help folks. And like creating a work requirement to receive Medicaid is stupid because Medicaid is there for when you're out of work, right? So the minute you get work, you no longer qualify for Medicaid. You now have to get work through your employer. So if you're going to take a zero work requirement for a benefit that's there for when you're out of work, then you're going to destroy the entire benefit, right? Let's say you're homeless with psychosis and you need health insurance, and some social worker managed to get you an address at a shelter and they're able to sign you up for Medicaid. And the Medicaid comes along and says, all right, crazy person who has no home and no shower and no access to regular food or anything else, you got to work or else we're going to take you off your insurance. That doesn't help society in any way, shape, or form. Matter of fact, we should just make all healthcare zero work requirement. You just exist in the United States, you get healthcare. That's the way it should be. Okay. Historically low labor force participation rate. The labor force participation rate still remains below pre-pandemic levels. Yeah, that's what happens when 13 million Americans now are on a disability because of COVID. Thought of that? That's why. Democrats' labor shortage hurts small business. At Ways and Means field hearings in West Virginia, Oklahoma, and Georgia, small business owners told Congress that the labor shortage has made it difficult to hire employees to fill job openings. Yeah, when you kill off 1 million Americans and 13 million more have permanent disability due to the novel virus pandemic, which you were doing nothing about stopping the spread of, and then encouraging people not to get vaccinated, things like that happen. Also, if you want to add in the fact that you're making it harder for immigrants to come to this country to fulfill those roles that we need done, and like I said, United States, in Seattle alone, we need 50,000 restaurant workers in Seattle. Those jobs used to be taken by immigrants, and those immigrants aren't coming at the numbers they used to because we restricted the number of visas available. We made it harder for them to come in and on low skill visa programs, make it harder for people to declare amnesty and come here. But we don't have the birth rate to support the jobs that we require, because Western nations just aren't birthing kids the same rate as they were before. So we import people from around the world to fulfill roles in society. And if you are the party who's implementing, making it harder for immigrants to come to this country, then don't complain about not having workers. It's that simple. You want workers? Well, let them come in. Ta-da! Problem solved. So far, Kevin McCarthy stuff is bullshit and has nothing to do with passing the debt ceiling. You pass the debt ceiling because you have to pay the debts you already took on. That's why you pass the debt ceiling. Okay, and that's it? That's all they have? Yeah, bullshit. So Kevin McCarthy is going to crash the entire global economy because he wants people who are physically or mentally unable to work, and he wants to ensure that we don't do any research and development into improving technologies so that we don't all burn to death via global warming. So those are Kevin McCarthy's reasons for not passing the debt ceiling: is kill the old people, kill the infirm, and make sure that we all die eventually in the end from massive global warming. So, okay, there we go. Yeah, right here, there's nothing. I'll be honest, there's nothing on Social Security in this, but not like he hasn't tried. but you go down here and you talk about cutting things like food stamps, Medicaid, public housing, childcare benefits. We need more public housing. We need a lot more public housing. We need probably 40 million units of public housing across the United States built now, like yesterday. So he wants to cut programs that would benefit people in our society. Like, don't complain about homelessness and make it harder to get public assistance. Those are antithetical to each other. They oppose each other in a way that doesn't make any sense. Oh, yeah. You're out of work, you need help? Well, you ought to get a job if you want help. Well, if they had a job, they wouldn't need the help. Right? So, yeah, this is a dumb bill. And it defeats a huge piece of legislation that's going to employ a fantastic number of people. The Infrastructure Reform Act will get tons of people working, and if you're going to cut those programs, then why you say it's going to save jobs if you're going to cut programs that are producing jobs?